This is Glasgow Rangers Nation. I am Owen James, and this, excuse me, and this is all your latest Rangers news. We've got news about Ibrahim Adel. We've got news about Sarmiento. We've got news about Mohamed Diomande, and we've got Scott Wright departure news. Yes, you heard me right. Scott Wright departure news. After 3 times, I think it was, putting him on a plane to Turkey last year and trying to get rid of him, we may have finally managed it. Oh my God. Could this be coming true? Could Scott Wright finally be leaving Rangers? News to come. Right. Where should we go first? Well, let's go first to the latest on Ibrahim Adel, the Egyptian international who really impressed at the Paris 2024 Olympics. Adel is a guy who can play left wing, he can play right wing, he can play as a second striker, he can also play as a striker as well, although that's not really his role. Now we know that he plays for one of the greatest named teams in world football, in Pyramids FC. I've got to say, it's up there with Kaiser Chiefs, Orlando Pirates, for example. Top names. So what's the latest on Ibrahim Adel? Now we know that allegedly, and we use the word allegedly because let's face it, none of us actually know the truth, do we? We don't know how much teams actually want for players. We always get this undisclosed crap that comes out of teams. We always get a situation where every fee is undisclosed. So we've got to kind of do our best guess. Now, according to reports in the media, Pyramids FC want in the region of £5 million for the signing of Ibrahim Adel. He's a very important player for them. He's a very talented player. He's a direct, quick, tricky winger. Someone who has really done well for them over the last few seasons and really impressed at the Paris Olympics for Egypt under 23s as they finished 4th, just now obviously missing out on a medal after losing 6-0 to Morocco in the bronze medal playoff match. Now, Adel scored during that time against Spain, the eventual gold medalists. Yes, that's right. What a summer for Spain, European champions and Olympic champions. But Adel apparently has told Pyramids FC that he wants to leave, and he's ordered them to accept any bid from a European club. Now, Rangers will have to act fast if they want to sign Ibrahim Adel. Why will they have to act fast? Well, according to some reports that are happening down here, south of the border, and yes, I am south of the border, Leicester and Ipswich are allegedly interested in purchasing this player as well. Now, quite what stage they are at in terms of their movement, who knows? Now, Leicester obviously are suffering for a slight uncertainty because Leicester are in the Premier League now, but are facing a possible points deduction for PSR, FFP, whatever you want to call them, breaches when they were in the Premier League. So that's a retrospective punishment. Ipswich have just recently signed Jack Clark from Sunderland. So do they need another winger? That's the question. Jack Clark, obviously, left winger. Adel, left winger. Do they want 2 of them? Possibly not. So that puts Rangers in pole position. Now, Adel has talked about his desire to move to Europe. He's talked about his desire to play in the top league in England. But he sees that, at this initial stage where Leicester are undecided, Ipswich probably not really going to go for it, given the fact, like I said, that they've signed Jack Clark. That Rangers could be a good stepping stone for him. Now, look, I know that will annoy some fans, upset some fans, but I think, we've got to kind of face this sort of truth now that we are becoming somewhat of a stepping stone for clubs, for players to, come, impress, play well, move to EPL. Look, the EPL is the biggest, the best league in the world, whether we like it or not. And unfortunately, unless we eventually manage to get into the English Premier League, it is going to be a situation where clubs south of the border will dominate due to their extremely more beneficial finances with their excellent TV deals, their income revenue streams, their sponsorship deals, all better than whatever we can get at this moment in time in Scotland. So Adel looks like a strong possibility, especially as he's told Pyramids FC, what a name, that he wants to leave the club. Now, could this deal get done before Friday? It's going to be touch and go. It's going to be a real push. Obviously, given the fact that he's Egyptian, given the fact that obviously he hasn't got any European citizenship, quite a lot of these players that come from Africa, come from Asia, will often have a second passport. Will have for example, a lot of the African players may have a French passport or a Spanish passport, for example. That's the same with South American players, which enables them to get work permits a lot easier. So obviously that is something that would have to put in place. Now, today is Wednesday, which obviously gives us only to Friday to get this deal done, over the line, work permits done, everything signed off, international clearance. So we've got to move quick. but it does look like this deal is starting to gain a little bit of traction, a little bit of pace behind it. Now, given the fact that we've got Cortez, who's out injured at the moment, on his way back, we've got Tierney. Signing of Adel would certainly add some quality to that winger area, especially as there's obviously news about a departure of a winger from Ibrox. Who is the winger that could be departing? Well, it's none other than Mr. Scott Wright. Yes, a man who can make fans angry, a man who can divide fans, a man who at times can be great, someone who in approach work can be brilliant, someone who frustrates, someone who at Hampden Park suddenly becomes a new player. Scott Wright, what do we make of him? Obviously signed from Aberdeen, never really kind of lived up to his promise. Approach work is pretty good. I mean, he works hard, he keeps his shape, he works back, he keeps his structure, he can defend. There's a lot of positives to Scott Wright, don't get me wrong. There is positives to Scott Wright. It's not all negative. His end product is quite poor. When he's through on goal, he often will just pass the ball back to the goalkeeper rather than actually testing him. And some of his crosses, well, they're not the best, are they? He is quick, though. He is very, very rapid. Now, according to Sky Sports, so this is an official source, it is being reported that Birmingham City are closing in on a deal to sign Scott Wright from Rangers, with the winger set to undergo a medical. Now, if the player is already, starting to travel south to Birmingham, where he will joining, obviously, his teammate Ben Davis. Thank you, Birmingham. You are doing us such a favour this window. I mean, Tom Wagner, I love you. Seriously, man, if you sign Scott Wright, you're just the greatest ever. So the story is that he is travelling south of the border, that he will undergo a medical at Birmingham City ahead of a permanent move to St Andrews. This is not a loan. This is not a loan with an option to buy. This is not a loan with an obligation to buy. This is a straight up sale. This will obviously clear £6,000 a week. It's not massive off the wage bill. We'll obviously bring in some money as well. Not a massive, obviously, transfer fee. Now, Scott Wright was linked with a move to the Championship previously to Sheffield Wednesday. It appears, obviously, that one died a death and never came up. Now, Birmingham, obviously, League One Birmingham, they've already signed 13 players, including our very own Ben Davis on loan. Now seek to add this 14th player to their squad. They really are, pushing hard to bring these players in. Now, Chris Davis, who is their manager, obviously was a coach at Celtic last season. So you've got to kind of question, what did he see in Scott Wright? Obviously, given the fact that he would have seen Scott Wright up close, he would have seen Scott Wright play when up in Scotland. I'm sure he would have seen Scott Wright when looking at Rangers tape. So you've got to kind of question, what has he seen in Scott Wright that kind of makes him someone that he wants to buy? Now, look, League One in England is a mixed bag. It is a very, very mixed bag. I talked on the podcast last night about the players heading to League Two and how crap League Two is in England. League One in England is very much a kind of mixed bag of teams. You look at who is in League One. You've got some teams that used to be, Championship teams being played in the Premier League. The Huddersfields, the Charltons, the Birminghams, Barnsleys, Readings, Wigans, Blackpools of this world. But you've also got some teams that are newly, sort of promoted, some not so great teams, some Stockports, some Stevenages, but Wanderers are in there, for example, Mansfield Town, Wycombe, Exeter City, Burton Albion, Leyton Orient, Shrewsbury, Mansfield Town, some pretty poor teams in there. So it's very much a mixed bag. Some of the top teams in League One are very good. It's a really good standard. Birmingham City are currently only 5th, which is quite remarkable. Stockport being top, but in Huddersfield, Charlton, Wrexham, obviously under the two Americans, Birmingham, top teams down there that do play good football. But it is a league of cloggers. It is a league of skillful players. It is a very mixed league. Bit SPL-esque, really, I suppose. So Scott Wright, I've got no doubts, will settle in quite well down there if he does move to League One. But it does look hopeful that Scott Wright might be on his way out of the club. Now, Rangers are, been linked with a whole host of wingers. Now, Ibrahim Adel obviously seems to be the favourite, the one that is seemingly leading the way. If that is a move we can get across the line if Leicester and Ipswich don't come in and interfere with that. Obviously, Leicester and Ipswich do have one major advantage. They are both Premier League teams, so therefore they have more substantial budgets, better wage structures, more ability to pay a higher wage, more ability to pay a higher transfer fee due to the fact they have a lot more money than us. Now, a player that Rangers have been linked with is a guy called Jeremy Lionel Sarmiento Morante, just basically Jeremy Sarmiento. He is an international, an Ecuador international. Yes, I know you're getting horrible Cifuentes flashbacks, but this guy has settled in England, has played well in England, has played for Brighton, actually scored last night in the Carabao Cup. Just so you're aware, Brighton and other Premier League teams don't tend to take the League Cup too seriously, do tend to field a lot of their reserves in that tournament, although Matt O'Reilly, former Celtic player, was injured after only 8 minutes and stretchered off. Every cloud. Anyway, what do we know about this guy? So he's called Jeremy Lionel Sarmiento Morante. He's 22 years old. He is from Madrid, but has Ecuadorian citizenship through his parents. He's under 6 foot. He's also got English citizenship, which does make any transfer a whole lot easier. He's a left winger, but again, a right-footed left winger, someone who likes to invert. He's with Brighton and Hove Albion at this moment in time. He is under contract until 2027, so he still has 3 years to run on his deal. Now, last season, he spent time at Ipswich on loan. Ipswich, obviously, who were promoted from League One to the Championship, and from the Championship straight to the Premier League. An incredible job done there by Kieran McKenna. In his time with Ipswich, he was a very, very good player. Someone Ipswich did rate very high. And I find it very surprising Ipswich didn't actually punt a little bit of cash on him over the summer. A player who I think could have done a job for them, but he was returned to Brighton. Now, with Ipswich, he played 22 games, scored 4 goals, 2 assists. He was also been a West Brom player, 21 appearances, 2 goals, no assists. With Brighton, he's made 20 appearances, 2 assists. He also spent time at Benfica with Brighton's under 21s and Charlton's under 18s. He's played in the Championship, the Premier League, the Liga Real, the Premier League 2, the FA Cup, the EFL Cup, the FA Youth Cup, the UEFA Youth League, the EFL Trophy. He's played in a number of different competitions and has a wide and varied experience. As a player, he can play right wing, he can play attacking midfielder, he can play left wing, which is his main position. So he can play in a number of different positions. He is a very talented winger. He is still very young as well, so obviously fits very much into this trading model that Rangers want to install. At 22 years old, he still has development. He still has room for improvement. People talk about Sarmiento in terms of the fact that he's a very quick, fast, direct winger, skillful. His end product is not always there, so that's something he does need to develop. Now, it's reported that Brighton will be looking for somewhere in the region of £5 million for Sarmiento. Again, there is interest from teams south of the border. According to reports in the media down here, Burnley are also showing an interest in Sarmiento. Burnley, who are anxious, obviously, for promotion back to the Premier League. Again, this does place Rangers at a slight disadvantage, given the fact that EFL Championship teams do have still a substantial budget. However, Rangers do, of course, have trophies, European football, 51,000 crowds, things to offer this player. This European football obviously is a major selling point. Now, this is another player that has been linked. I can't help but feel, though, that if Rangers do manage to get the Adel deal over the line, that Sarmiento will not be followed through on. It does appear, though, from what I've heard, and, as I mentioned on the podcast last night, that Rangers are working on multiple centre-back targets, that they will also be working on multiple winger targets as well. It appears that Coppen does have a wide list, a long list, and a number of players he is working on that should he obviously be in a position to go on and develop that and be able to sign players that he has option 1, option 2, 3, 4, 5, a number of options that he can bring in, which obviously is, the way of the world, the best way of working. So another possible link there that goes on top, of course, of Kevin Arnstad, who was mentioned on last night's podcast. Talking of midfielders, Mohamed Diomande, big congratulations to our Ivory Coast midfielder who has been called up to the full international squad. this is great news. Obviously the fact that Mohamed Diomande has been recognised by the Ivory Coast and called up to their full team shows obviously that he is impressing, that he is making progress at Rangers, and does show that that by coming to Rangers he's put himself in a position to actually play for his national team. The Ivory Coast are of course the AFCON holders at this moment in time and are looking to go on and be very successful. An Ivory Coast team that contains a number of very talented players, including Ibrahim Sagare of Nottingham Forest, a £30 million player, Frank Kessel of AC Milan, Sebastian Haller of Borussia Dortmund. This gives Diomande the chance to go and play with and learn from some top talents who play at top European clubs. All very positive for Mo. And massive congratulations to a player that is unbelievably talented. He is kind of seen as been a bit of a poster boy for the trading model. He's a player that Rangers have exceptionally high hopes for, that in the future he will be able to be sold for a massive profit on what we paid for him. I think it's about 4 million. So there is definitely that profit there. And I think he is certainly a player who will go on to have success, who will, I think, go on to play in the EPL or La Liga or somewhere else. But big massive congratulations to him that he's obviously made the Ivory Coast international team. Bit of Champions League news. Our conquerors, Dynamo Kiev, have gone out of the Champions League. Yes, justice has been done. RB Salzburg won the game, drew the game last night 1-1, but obviously won 3-1 on aggregate to go through to the group stages of the Champions League. Huge congratulations to Red Bull Salzburg, who are coached by Pep Linders, who is the former assistant to Jurgen Klopp. Certainly seems to be one of the brains behind the Klopp revolution at Liverpool, doing a very fine job at Salzburg. Well done, Mr. Linders. But yeah, great news that they're through, knocking Kiev out. This, of course, means Kiev drop down to the Europa League. Could we face them again and actually put right the injustice of that red card and win that game? And it got me thinking a little bit. Red Bull Rangers, anybody? RB Rangers, possibility? Would you welcome it? Would you hate it? Let me know what you think. Anyway, thank you for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation, guys. As always, on the way out, please smash that like. And remember always, we are the people.